Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic, Non-Classic. This is episode number 1258 and Doubleshot number 1352. I have two trades that are finales. One is a finale to Writer's Run, the other is a finale to pretty much the entire series. First up is the final trade that collects issues from Joelle Jones' run for Catwoman. Now, you're probably thinking, now this is the third volume, and this collects issues 16 and 21. You're probably thinking, wait, didn't the last book go to 12? You might be asking, yes, actually with the 13. Well, there's a reason for that. Joelle Jones didn't write the issue. So, that was actually written by the person who succeeded Joelle Jones' book, Ram V. I have no idea who Ram V is, but I'll be talking about basically a work by him, by this person. I don't know if it's a guy or a woman. It was next trade because that person is write the book. This book is simply the finale for Joelle Jones' run for the book. Also, you can tell by the cover, yeah, that costume is very heavily inspired by the Golden Age Catwoman costume. Well, what's considered to be the Golden Age costume, the purple outfit and the spandex. And later on, but halfway through the story, she adapts this costume, which kind of looks like a regular costume with the very, well, cat-like domino mask. But I will talk about more. There's something very interesting happens at the very end. Simply in this book, we're just wrapping up like a lot of loose plot threads, basically, because Joelle Jones is leaving the book for reasons. I'm not really sure why. Especially as Joelle Jones has had a really good run on this book. Yes. No explanation. As a matter of fact, when they switched writers for this book, I'm like, wait, who's Ram V? I thought Joelle Jones ran this book. And then basically Joelle Jones came back. And it's like, okay, Joelle Jones is back. What the heck was that about? And at first, like, oh, she came back to do these issues. And then she leaves again. For reasons. Don't know why. So one of the plot threads she basically deals in here is the woman basically who she's had a grudge with, let's say rivalry since the start of this run. Basically this corrupt female politician who's got a very disfigured face, got no nose. Well, basically she had a nose but it was removed. And she's had a bitter fight with her throughout this whole book. And also she reunites with her sister in this book, yes, Maggie, who in pre-Flashpoint, she was a nun. And by the way, here's something interesting, though, about this woman. You see, in pre-Flashpoint, she was put in a wheelchair by Black Mask. Yes, Black Mask shot her and put her in a wheelchair. So, in retaliation, in I think it was Catwoman 50, Catwoman murders Black Mask as revenge for what he did to her sister. Here, Black Mask is not in the book. It's implied that might be canon, but not really. And this one person who I think is supposed to be Maggie's son is wondering why is Selene there. Selene has every reason why to see her sister because it's her sister. Yeah. And, well, deals with a woman, her house, I think her house gets destroyed in here. Her son is nowhere to be seen here. Yeah, he's basically been dealt with like a long time ago. And then the book ends with her driving off and her putting back on a costume. Which costume, you might ask? Why? Like, she pretty much puts on the costume that the late Darwin Cook gave her. Yep, goes back to this outfit. Even goes back to the same goggles. Yeah, same goggles, same exact outfit. I love this outfit. And I'm glad the fact she went back to this attire because, well, I guess Joelle Jones like, okay, I'm wrapping my run, so basically I'm going to have her stop wearing the costume that she wore during this run and go back to wearing the costume people like. I haven't heard anything about anything negative about the costume she was wearing. But this book, it's pretty good. She basically goes back home. Also, there's a Year the Valentine in here. Doesn't really affect the story at all. Just we see Catwoman seeing the sky, the totality in the sky that basically popped up in a lot of DC comics basically around this period of time. This is like 2 years ago. But this book is good. Give this book roughly a 9 out of 10. Fantastic book. Nothing really wrong with it though. Final thoughts on the Joelle Jones run for the book. Yeah, these 3 trades collect her whole run. And I should point out something about the Catwoman logo. Yeah, this is the logo they basically gave the title with the Flashpoint reboot. With the current title when it was started by Joe Winnick. They gave Catwoman this logo, and they had this logo the whole run for that book. And apparently DC is like, okay, I guess some people like that logo. Give it here. Now, when this thing first started, this came out like right after the controversial Batman 50 that Tom King got death threats over. I'm not kidding about that. He did. He got death threats. As far as I know, it's one of 2 books I can think of he's written these actually received death threats for. I mean, I heard about the Batman 50. I heard about that one. I did not hear about, until Lynn Carr brought up in his review last year, that when basically Heroes of Kai's coming out, he was receiving death threats. Yes, receiving death threats. Though for him, it basically wouldn't bother him very much because he was in the CIA. Yeah, oh, and by the way, on the cover of the first trade here, you see the comic that Sleek House holding? That's Batman 50. That was supposed to be the wedding issue that apparently someone did. He's like, oh crap, let's not have Batman and Catwoman get married. Let's have Batwoman be moody for reasons. And I heard about this book just prior to the start of that wedding. I was like, okay, I guess Catwoman's going to sell a book, and this basically kind of way justifies it. And also kind of give a reason why she's back in Gotham currently in the books right now. But yeah, this book is actually pretty good. Nothing really wrong with Joelle Jones' run for the book. Yeah, especially since she had Laura Aldred do all the coloring in here, which was really good. I love actually this. It's interesting though that for this book, this is probably like the only book I could think of like lately. Now, there's another book basically DC's publishing over the last 5 years where the writer and artist kind of was the same person. Now, DC has tried this experiment where the writer and artist are typically the same person. Basically, a Todd McFarlane experiment, where writes the book, draws the book as well. Eric Larson does the same thing as well. DC has had some success in that. Like, for example, Robinson the Batman by Patrick Gleason. Despite the fact he didn't do all the issues, but he did write and draw a good chunk of it. That proved to be a success because Patrick Gleason knew what he was doing and he got the book on time. Not the case Justice League America and of course Justice League, where Brian Hitch decided it would be a good idea to write and draw the book himself. And instead of, having an artist in the book. And Brian Hitch himself proved to be a very bad writer. Still a good artist, though. And currently he's back doing artwork now, which, thank you, Brian Hitch, go back to artwork, because your writing style, your stories sucked. Your character film was actually really good. So you probably think, okay, 1-to-1. Try it again with Joelle Jones. And this proved to be really good. And the one thing she has over Brian Hitch, she actually released a book on time. Yeah, fantastic book. Alright, moving on to a different book. This is Justice League Dark, Volume 4. A costly trick of magic. This collects issues 20 to 28 of Justice League Dark Volume 2. This is pretty much the end of this book. Even though, yes, there was another issue published, right after these issues were published, but it was not done by the creative team. It was a bonus issue part of an event called Endless Winter. That, even though, here's the thing, it's been 3 months since this crossover concluded. And I've seen no announcement of a trade paperback for that. Especially as the book was actually really good. I'm like, why? It's not the only book that ended during that particular event. They also had Aquaman too. I'm like, why? Makes no frickin' sense at all. Now, there's kind of in a way 2 different stories in here. Yes, one of the things involves the Upside Down Man, which is a character that James Tynion also created. The first half of this book mostly deals with stuff from Swamp Thing. Because, well, Swamp Thing's in the book, so why do some follow-up to it? There's a lot of follow-up to the Swamp Thing book. Like, we have the return of Anti-Arcane, his niece Abby Arcane, Swamp Thing's lover. We have Animal Man pop up in the book, which is awesome. Like, when was the last time we saw Animal Man in a DC comic book? I mean, he didn't appear in this. I don't think he appeared in this book even part of this storyline. He also had the return of the Phonic Man. Yes, Jason Woodrow's back in here, which is awesome. Like, great stuff in here. Basically, it's all about trying to reinvigorate the Parliament of Life. And they succeed in doing that. Yeah, and also aside from the red, the green, and the rot, there's also the gray and the divide. Those two I think were new. I'd never heard of those two particular plumbers before, but that's basically where it is when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. Damn it. Come on. Trying to finish that as quickly as possible. Okay. Yeah. Now, they do the ups and downs, man. They basically get rid of him at the end of this book. And, of course, also with Dr. Fane here. Basically, in the way these last 9 issues just feel like basically wrap up a lot of loose threads in here because I guess DC didn't probably want this book to continue because currently the book is not being published. It's been like 3 months this book was concluded and no signs of coming back. Not really, no. Well, this book is fantastic. This book is basically mostly, first couple issues are co-written by James Tynion IV. The Ram V pretty much does the rest of this book by this person. I'm not sure if it's a guy or woman. The artwork in here is done by Amaclay Nafan, Kyle Holtz, really good artist, Alvaro Martinez Benino, and Raul Fernandez. And by the way, the cover art here is done by Waka Panik and Nathan Faborn. Now, I should point out that some of the artwork in here is very similar to artwork you would see in the pages of Swamp Thing or Animal Man, like from the Vertigo run. Which is interesting in the fact they went for this style because it's Swamp Thing stuff, which is awesome. This book is amazing. I give this book roughly a 10 out of 10. It's a really good book. Okay? Yeah, I know kind of rushing because it's basically 30 pictures outside. Final thoughts on this run, on this series. Now, I've already reviewed the entirety of the first series already, so I'm going to talk about this run here. This entire run for Justice League Dark. Like, we have this book here. We have The Last Saga Magic, which is really good. The crossover, which basically explains why the issues, like issue 4 is handed because of the crossover with Wonder Woman, because they also basically have all up to this with this very storyline here, with this power that Wonder Woman has. Basically, she briefly gets back from Cersei, which I'll get to that. And then we have Lords of Order, which is a good second arc. And this book basically was something a lot of the book was dealing toward. No, this book is also a tie-in to Year of the Villain that was really good. It's basically the Injustice Dark. Yes, a magic version of the Injustice League versus the Justice League Dark, which is awesome. I found it to be really amazing. And you have this book here, which is just so good. This book was just so amazing. Like, throughout the entirety of the 28 issues, well, 29 if you include the stuff with Endless Winter, this book was just purely fantastic. Loved it. Great book. And I do recommend it to people for try out because if you're a fan of DC Magic stuff, I did recommend checking this out because James himself does a really good job with the book. Even though he doesn't write the whole run, he does a great job with this book. Ram V pretty much writes the rest of this book. And of course, the last issue was written by Ron Martz and I think it was like Andy Lenning for Endless Winter. But I'll discuss that whenever Endless Winter comes out. Okay, so that's it for Sigla Review. Stay tuned for my next Comic Corner, which we review of a couple more finales. Yes, for Stormwatch and Batgirl. You'll find out basically about the reason why for that, okay? So next video. Bye.